Hello and welcome to the Greenfoot video tutorials. My name is Michael Kölling and I will show you today how you can share your work with friends or the rest of the world. I am just about finished writing a scenario here. I just finish it off. I'm incrementing the speed here when I press my right arrow key. Okay, this is it. I can compile this and now it should work. If I press the run button, now if I press my right and left arrow key, my pig rolls across the screen. Okay, so this is my completely finished rolling pig scenario. I am done now with my implementation, and now I want to share the scenario with others, and that is what I will show you today, how to do this in Greenfoot. Greenfoot has here, in the scenario menu, an export function. This is the function that we can use to share our scenario. If I select this, I get a dialog, and you see here at the top there are three different options for exporting my scenario. We will discuss them each in turn now. We'll start with the application. I can export my scenario as a standalone application. Then I can execute it without having Greenfoot installed. Here I can select where I want to store it. I select my desktop to store the scenario, the exported scenario on my desktop. So it tells me it will create a file called demo.jar. Demo is the name of my scenario here. Jar is a suffix standing for Java archive. This will package this as an executable Java program. Once I click export now, it is fairly quick. That was it already. It has been created just outside the video area here, so I'll just drag that in here so that you can see it. It has just created this file here. If I get this out of the way, I've got now my jar file that is an executable Java file. If I double click this, you will see I get here my scenario in executable form. I can run this and I can now roll my pig across the screen. Hours of fun. You notice here that the executable version, the exported version, has no class diagram here on the right hand side of the screen. It has no compile button. In this version, the exported version, you cannot modify the scenario anymore. You cannot compile it. This is really intended for end users just to execute the finished scenario, not to work on it anymore. That also means that in my Greenfoot version here, it is important that all the objects that I want in the world at the starting point are automatically created. After exporting, there will be no chance to interactively insert objects to the world. So here in my world class, I have written code to create this pig and add it to the object, so that my pig object that I want to be present here in the world is automatically inserted into the world when this runs. This is necessary for the export to work. You also may have noticed, if you look at the export dialog again, that there is a checkbox here that says lock scenario. Locking the scenario removes the speed slider and the act button and the possibility to move the objects around freely on screen before running the scenario. For games, you typically do not want to allow the user to change the speed, because that would significantly change the game. For games, you would always lock the scenario. If you have more experimental scenarios, you can leave the locking off. If I now export that again without locking, and then we again look at what it looks like now. If it is not locked, you will notice now there is now a speed slider, there is the act button, and I can move the object. So if I change the speed now, I could now roll my pig much faster across the screen. So if you want to allow changes of speed, changes of the object location or individual action, you can unlock the scenario. Let us investigate the next export option. I go to the export dialog again, and this time we look at the export to the web page. This allows me to run my scenario when it is finished in a web page. Again, I select where I want to store it and I place it on my desktop and export to a web page. What happens now is that here this folder has just been created by Greenfoot. So I get a folder that includes two files, an HTML file, a web page, and here again a jar file, a slightly different one, a jar file that includes an applet. An applet is a version of my scenario that can run inside a web page. If I open this HTML file, this opens now in my web browser, and here you see that I have now a web page, and in that web page I have my scenario. If I run this, again my pig is nicely rolling across the screen. So this is now a running working program inside a web page. This web page is local on my machine at the moment, but if you have a website somewhere published, you could look at the HTML code that has been generated here to see the code needed to include this jar file in your web page and include it in your own web page. The jar file itself has to be located in the same folder as the HTML page that refers to it for this to work. So in this way you can get your scenario onto your web page. However, that requires you to have your own web page or your own web server to make this available. If you don't have your own web server available, then the third export function, publish, is maybe more interesting. Publish lets you place your scenario on a web server that we are running, a publicly available web server. Here at the top of the dialog the name is mentioned. It's called the Greenfoot Gallery, and there's a link. If I click on this, this will now be opened in my web browser. Here I see in my browser now the Greenfoot Gallery, and this is not local. This is a public website. This is visible to the world, and you see on this website there are all sorts of Greenfoot scenarios. Anyone can execute and view these scenarios, and if you create an account on this website, you can publish your own scenarios here. You can think about it as a kind of YouTube for Greenfoot scenarios. So here anyone can place their material. Let us try that out now. So here I can create an icon. This is created by taking a snapshot of the screen as it is visible here, and then it allows me to scale and move this to create an icon. Let's say this is my the image I want for the icon, and then here you can give it a title and a description and so on. Because I have previously exported this scenario already once before, I have already some text filled in here. If you do that for the first time, you can type the text in. Over to the right there are some tags, so you can tag this scenario either by selecting some of the most popular tags, or here adding your own custom tags so that it can be found in different categories later. Again, you have the option to lock the scenario, and you have the option to publish the source code to the gallery as well or not. That is your choice. If you publish the source code, anyone else will be able to download and see your source code. Then here I identify myself. I've got a username. I type in my password, and I can export my scenario. And this has just been sent over the network to the server, the Greenfoot Gallery, and it should now be available there. So if I open the web page again, here's the Greenfoot Gallery. Here are the most recently added scenarios. If I now reload this page, I force a reload, and there is my rolling pig scenario. There's my icon. It is now available to view for the rest of the world. I can click on this, and here I see my scenario. I can run it. My pig is happily rolling again as before, and now people can view this, play this, leave comments here, and rate the scenario and tell me what they think of it. This is the end for this tutorial video. These were the 3 ways how you can share your work with your friends and others. Thank you for listening. Bye bye.